State of Cannabis.
This is the State of Cannabis News Digest, a roundup of this week's key developments in the cannabis industry. Our top stories.
In Florida, two new bills could reshape how medical marijuana patients are treated, both in the workplace and in family courts, offering protections to nearly 900,000 registered patients as the state eyes a 2026 recreational ballot initiative. Meanwhile, Nebraska's fledgling medical cannabis program faces a political showdown. Regulators are accused of undermining the voter-approved law with restrictive rules that could make it one of the toughest in the nation. Across the Midwest and South, Ohio and Texas are both cracking down on intoxicating hemp products, with new enforcement orders, fines, and undercover stings aimed at curbing unregulated sales, particularly those targeting minors. In Virginia, lawmakers are taking a different tack, drafting rules for a fully regulated retail market expected to launch in 2026, and seeking to balance safety with opportunity for small businesses. Nationally, there's movement and gridlock in equal measure. The Veterans of Foreign Wars has entered a groundbreaking partnership to bring hemp THC beverages to select posts, highlighting changing attitudes within the veterans community. But in Washington, the DEA's cannabis rescheduling process remains stalled, leaving industry and policymakers waiting for clarity. And finally, the hemp industry is sounding alarms over congressional proposals that could redefine hemp entirely. A move advocates warn could wipe out an entire sector unless lawmakers opt for regulation instead of prohibition. Stay with us for the details behind each of these stories and what they mean for patients, businesses, and the broader push for reform. This is your Cannabis Policy Update. Stay tuned.
And now here is the deeper look at the key events in the cannabis world this week.
In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has ordered a statewide enforcement push against intoxicating hemp violations. DPS's Criminal Investigations Division will identify shops of concern, inspect them with partner agencies, conduct undercover stings, and send seized items to the DPS Crime Lab to confirm whether products meet the legal hemp limit of no more than 0.3% THC by dry weight. When violations occur, agents can bring criminal cases against employees and owners. This directive follows emergency rules from the Department of State Health Services that bar sales of hemp products to people under 21 and allow license or registration revocations for selling to minors, with an exception if a minor used an apparently valid ID. The state framed the actions around child protection after legislative efforts to enact a broader ban did not pass. The Agriculture Department has also addressed federal compliance questions and indicated potential changes to how total THC is measured, a move that could affect what remains legal on shelves. A recent GOP-affiliated poll found bipartisan opposition to a full hemp ban proposal. For retailers, the enforcement shift means tighter age checks, more meticulous labeling and testing documentation, and potential product removal. For consumers, those under 21 cannot purchase hemp products, and adult buyers may see fewer intoxicating items available as DPS increases inspections and testing.
As Texas ramps up enforcement around hemp and cannabis products, from new under 21 restrictions to statewide DPS inspections, one question is becoming more urgent. What comes next for cannabis policy in Texas? That's exactly what policymakers, researchers, and industry experts will tackle at the Texas Cannabis Policy Conference, happening January 29th through 31st at the Thompson Conference Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Hosted by the Texas Cannabis Policy Center, this three-day event will dive into the evolving landscape of hemp regulation, enforcement trends, and future reform possibilities. Sessions will explore how Texas can balance public safety, economic opportunity, and access, with data, not guesswork. If today's headlines have you wondering how these new rules will shape the industry, this is the room you'll want to be in. Registration is open now at texascannabisconference.org, and students attend free with registration. That's texascannabisconference.org, where Texas comes together to understand, debate, and define the state's cannabis future.
Ohio moved to curb unregulated intoxicating hemp, with Governor Mike DeWine signing a 90-day executive order that starts October 14th. It bans the sale of Delta-8 products and THC-infused beverages outside licensed dispensaries, authorizes seizures after the effective date, and sets a $500 per day fine for non-compliant retailers. The order changes administrative definitions so that intoxicating hemp is no longer considered legal hemp in Ohio. Non-intoxicating hemp and marijuana in licensed dispensaries are not affected. At a press event, officials displayed candy look-alike packages such as Stoner Patch Dummies, Nerdy Bears, and sour-infused gummies, and cited pediatric exposure numbers. Medical experts said accidental ingestions can lead to serious symptoms in young children. Industry groups responded that the order bypasses the legislature and threatens small businesses and farmers, urging regulation with age limits, third-party testing, accurate labeling, and packaging rules instead of prohibition. Supporters countered that the products currently lack required testing and age gating. Lawmakers already have multiple bills to regulate intoxicating hemp, including age restrictions, marijuana-level testing, taxes, packaging and labeling standards, and requirements that sales occur through licensed dispensaries. The executive order runs through January 12, 2026, setting up a 90-day window for the General Assembly to decide whether to codify regulations or let the temporary ban lapse.
In Nebraska, a newly launched state medical cannabis program has become the center of a growing political and regulatory clash. While officials recently approved the first cultivation licenses, seen as a major step toward making medical marijuana available to patients, critics argue that the program's strict rules betray the intent of voters who supported legalization. A state lawmaker has filed a formal complaint accusing regulators and the governor's office of undermining the voter-approved measure. The complaint challenges emergency regulations that limit products to pills, tinctures, and oils, banning flour and concentrates, and impose an unusually low possession limit for patients. It also argues that rules restricting which doctors can recommend cannabis and capping cultivation output go beyond what the law allows. Some license applicants who were denied are appealing the decision, citing a lack of transparency and fairness in the process. Nebraska's lawmakers plan to hold a hearing later this month to examine the issue, which could determine whether the state's medical cannabis program expands to meet voter expectations or remains among the most restrictive in the country.
In Florida, Senator Tina Polsky has introduced two new bills that could reshape how the state treats medical marijuana patients in the workplace and in family courts. The first bill, known as the Medical Marijuana Public Employee Protection Act, would stop public employers from firing or refusing to hire people who lawfully use medical cannabis. Employers would still have the right to act if cannabis use impairs job performance or endangers safety, but they would need to give written notice and a chance for employees to explain any positive THC test results. The second proposal focuses on parental rights, ensuring that no parent loses custody or visitation solely because they use medical marijuana under state law. Together, the bills aim to provide consistent protections for nearly 900,000 registered patients in Florida. The legislation arrives as advocates prepare a new ballot initiative to legalize recreational cannabis in 2026, after a similar effort narrowly missed the 60% voter threshold last year. With shifting court rulings and growing public support, Florida's approach to cannabis continues to evolve, and these bills could offer a key step toward stronger patient protections statewide.
Virginia lawmakers spent the week mapping out how to launch retail cannabis sales in 2026. A state commission heard from experts who said the medical program's pharmacist model and metric tracking can support consumer safety, but warned about mislabeled and contaminated products in the gray market. Presenters urged clearer milligram labels, delivery rules, limits on local bans, and ownership safeguards so small businesses can compete. The Commission plans to finalize draft legislation in December.
Want to stay ahead of the smoke in America's evolving cannabis landscape? Subscribe to State of Cannabis, Weekly News Digest, your trusted source for fact-checked, nonpartisan cannabis reporting. Each week, we bring you the latest on federal reforms, state laws, industry shifts, and public health developments, all in one digestible episode. Whether you're a policymaker, patient, advocate, or entrepreneur, we've got the information you need to stay informed. Hit follow, give us a like or a thumbs up. Drop a review or leave a comment. Share this episode with someone who cares about cannabis reform. Because in this industry, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars has entered a national licensing agreement with Torch Drinks to place hemp THC beverages in select VFW posts where state and local laws allow. The VFW says this first-of-its-kind partnership for a major veterans service organization will provide an alcohol alternative and raise funds for core programs, including its National Veterans Service Program and Veterans and Military Support Programs. Commander Carol Whitmore said the goal is to meet the needs of an evolving veterans community while maintaining focus on care, benefits, and support. Torch Drinks, a Florida-based company, says customers report relaxation with its hemp-derived THC drinks, and that it supports continued research and discussion around innovative health options for veterans. The rollout will include responsible use and education initiatives tailored to veterans and families. The VFW has supported broader research on alternative therapies. A federally funded study published in August reported that cannabis use among veterans was associated with milder PTSD symptoms and reduced negative affect. In Washington, the Senate approved spending legislation that includes a provision to allow VA physicians to recommend medical cannabis to veterans in states where it is legal, although previous efforts have not reached the president's desk. For VFW posts in compliant jurisdictions, the partnership could diversify offerings in social settings and direct new revenue to veterans services while emphasizing education and responsible use.
On the national level, marijuana rescheduling debate is back in a holding pattern. The DEA and pro-reform parties filed a joint status report confirming that an interlocutory appeal tied to the case is still pending before the administrator and that no briefing schedule has been established. It is the third such filing with nearly identical language, and the first under Administrator Terrence Cole, who pledged during confirmation to prioritize the issue. The administrative stall follows President Donald Trump's August statement that he intended to decide within weeks whether to move cannabis to Schedule 3. Trump's nominee for White House drug czar, Sarah Carter, told senators the administration is keeping all options open, and 3 Republican senators recently called rescheduling a game changer. A Republican sponsor of a bipartisan cannabis banking bill said a rescheduling move could be an important domino for his legislation. Rescheduling through the Controlled Substances Act would not legalize state adult use markets, but it could ease research barriers, influence federal tax treatment for compliant entities, and affect financial services. None of that can proceed until the DEA resolves the pending appeal and advances rulemaking. For now, there is no schedule and no next step on the agency's docket.
The future of hemp products is being decided in Washington. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable sent an October 6 letter urging President Donald Trump to oppose a congressional move to redefine hemp in a way that would ban products containing any THC. The group says that would undo the 2018 Farm Bill's progress, cost jobs, and move sales to illicit channels. Instead, it proposes national age limits and standardized testing, labeling, and packaging. On Capitol Hill, the Senate stripped ban language from its agriculture spending bill after a procedural challenge, while the House has pushed restrictions through its own versions. Bipartisan senators have warned that any THC ban would upend the market and called for consumer safeguards. Other ideas include a regulatory alternative under discussion and Senator Rand Paul's Hemp Act, which would raise the permissible THC threshold and address industry compliance issues. Negotiators will decide whether the final package trends toward prohibition or regulation. The industry says a national framework would protect consumers and preserve the American-grown supply chain built since 2018. A ban, it warns, could remove most products from legal shelves and reverberate across farms and small businesses.
This was the State of Cannabis News Digest, available weekly. You can listen to us on all main podcast platforms. To make sure you don't miss out on the latest updates and in-depth analysis of the cannabis industry, be sure to subscribe to our podcast. By subscribing, you'll get notifications for each new episode, helping you stay informed and ahead in the ever-evolving cannabis market. Join us next Saturday for more insights. Until then, keep thriving and stay green.